You good?
Uh-huh.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
You look like you got a whole thought behind.
Nothing.
See, here's the problem. Why are you looking at me like that? Ladies and gentlemen, you see how this goes? This is our first couple that we're interviewing on Behind Closed Doors. We're going to be back right after this with the real and what it looks like to balance not only that marriage of yours, but when you're building a business, what does that look like? Here we go. Well, we'd like to welcome you guys back to another edition of Behind Closed Doors with the Brookses. I'm Glenn P. Brooks Jr. This lovely light-skinned young lady sitting next to me is the lovely
Cherie A. Brooks Jr. The lovely, the magnificent, the wonderful.
See, here's the problem.
Phenomenal.
Let me cut her mic off. See, here's the problem, y'all. When they take your last name, fellas, it's like they like, bro, like, can I have some stuff left? Like Jesus.
I took all of it when we got married. So hey.
So we've got one of our favorite couples in the world with us. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about entrepreneurial, got to say that fast, entrepreneurial union, fueling both love and business growth. Entrepreneurial union, fueling both love and business growth. I love it. Help me. Listen. So here's what we're going to talk about. So we've got Domenick and Lakita Epps. We've been working with these guys for the last,
forever.
We probably met. I think we met you guys back in 2017, maybe. Yeah. And you guys came into the MAPS Relationship Academy, started working with you guys, and then I had a chance to coach Lakita as a business coach. Dom is in the world of real estate and real estate investing and all those things. You guys have built an entire family and a unit amid a lot of moving parts. We're going to walk through a little bit about how do you balance it all? Because, babe, you wrote a book on this, how to build a marriage and a business without losing either one. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of people feel like they have to do either or, and they can't do both and well. Talk to us.
Yeah. And so the premise of the book, How to Build a Successful Marriage and Business, was based off of being able to have that balance, not allowing one to outshine the other, but it is possible to be successful in both your home life as well as your business life. And unfortunately, for many business owners, that's not the case. So to introduce our guests here today, first, I want to allow you guys to introduce yourself, tell the people who you are, and tell them a little bit about the businesses that you guys run independently as well as together.
Hi, I'm Lakita Epps, and I am a travel agent, on the business The Dreaming Queen LLC, better known as Excursions.
I love it. Dom, come on, talk to us. Tell people who you are, what you do, why you do it, who you do it for, all the good stuff.
Domenick Epps, known as the People's Agent, real estate broker, Virginia, Georgia, and North Carolina, as well as real estate investor. Been doing it since 2012, I believe. All things real estate. Real estate, whether it's buying and flipping, buying and holding, Airbnb, wholesale, teach it, train it, commercial and residential.
I love it. One of the things, Cherie, I want to kind of really talk a little bit about, like from a personal standpoint. A lot of times when you hear all those titles, what we didn't add in is a mom, a wife, a dad, a husband, parents of a sprawling and growing family. There is a lot of moving parts in y'all's lives. We've known you guys for a moment. One of the biggest challenges, Cherie, that we run into whenever we work with couples is when it comes to balance and all that stuff, there has to be a tight-knit level of communication, a certain skill set, if you will, that's been developed. What kind of level of communication has to go on in order to make this stuff work?
Well, let's go back to the beginning. Let's start, because you talked about, what you guys do today, but let's go back to, how did you guys meet? when did you start doing businesses, or were you doing businesses when you first met? And kind of share with people what this journey, entrepreneurial journey, has looked like along with your relationship.
So I'll say we met at church, new members class, started off friends. Helped him coach the church softball team. And I would say for him, the entrepreneurial journey was pretty much already set in stone, even if he hadn't started any motion with it. He kept a composition notebook with dreams and goals and visions. I used to joke him on it because I had never seen anybody have one. And he was adamant about these are the things that if I'm not going to do it and successfully keep it up, I'm going to at least attempt my hand at it. So out the gate for him. For me, it was 2021, December 2021. But doing it together, we working on that today.
That's funny. That's funny. Domenick, I know working in the industry that you work in, they call you the people's agent. Can you talk to people a little bit about, like, from dream to actualization? How does communication play a part in y'all's role as husband and wife?
I think early on, I'd rather speak like early on. So for me, I started my first business when I was 17. So I always had a desire and knew that at some point, entrepreneurship was what my desire was, right? As a kid in high school, reading the Black Enterprise magazines and just always envisioned myself being that Fortune 500 entrepreneur, right? And of course, you go through life, you get a job, you go down different paths of, if it's your parents, what they think you should. So my mom actually took me to the Navy recruiting offers in 11th grade. I got expelled from school for fighting. And she took me and said, hey, you're going to, do something with yourself and not get caught up in. We grew up in a very rough neighborhood. So that was her way of saying, hey, we're going to, you can go here and you can retire for 20 years. And I knew that wasn't going to happen. But, I did it. And very short stint, 13 months. And but I had a strong desire for entrepreneurship, right? And just being, I'm not going to say my own boss, because that term can kind of become a little loosely, right? But just having the freedom and the ability to serve and impact as many people. So I've always been coaching in some capacity. And then when it comes to the communication piece, just your ability to communicate what that dream looks like. You may not have all of the pieces to the puzzle, right? But you at least know what the puzzle looks like. What you see or what you desire. And so, just being able to communicate that piece is imperative.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I love that, Cherie. He talks about that puzzle piece, and sometimes, particularly as visionaries, and I know I've been guilty of this, I know what it looks like when we get there because I can see that in my mind's eye, although I've never been there. But I don't necessarily know the steps in order to get there. And a lot of times, in their case, you're starting a family during that time. And so it can become one of those heavy lists. And I know I'm talking to some entrepreneurs who are married now where one has the dream or the vision and the other feels like they're being dragged. And so we talking behind closed doors now. And I want to talk a little bit about emotional connection throughout that process and being able to communicate that effectively to your spouse or significant other, because I'm of the opinion that you can't do that by yourself. Like, that is going to take some skill, and it's not as easy as people think.
Right. And so I have a quick question. So, Dom, you had this vision, this dream from a very young age. You wanted to go into entrepreneurship. Were there people in your life, like, had you seen any other couples do this married before, or was this just something, I mean, did you have examples of what that could look like once you got married, when you guys got together?
Yeah, no. I've seen successful, well, can't use the term successful. I've seen drug dealers that, had their share of wealth, right? Not saying it's successful because they end up being locked up, but no, I haven't. That's why, for me, it was television, it was magazines, it was my mom taking us to what, we used to call the white folk section, which was a pretty prominent area in our city. And she used to take us there in her beat up Ford Tempo and allow us to dream and envision. Even though we stayed in the hood, she wanted to get us exposed to something different. So it was times like that that really made me think of, okay, well, first the motivation was to get my mom out the hood and do something for my mom, right? So, and I knew early on that it wasn't sports, even though I thought I was pretty good at football and basketball. And, everybody they used to call me Hoop Dream growing up because every single day I'm at the basketball court working on my game. But at some point I knew this ain't gonna cut it. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna sit here and try to have, these false hopes and dreams. So, but what I was good at was marketing, promotions, and music. And so I started a record company at 17. So no, I didn't have anyone, no couple to model, um, that I kind of like looked up to or had as mentors. But I did have different people that were, married or single that were successful in business. And I've kind of seen different, my friends' family, their parents, for instance. But most of the people, I would say probably about 90% just had a job. Most of them had a job. My father couldn't keep a job, but he was an entrepreneur. He, had his own, he used to sell movies, right? He was the bootleg guy, right? So, and he didn't mind telling you about it, right? So the grind and grit that I have, I really got that from my pops. But the visionary from my mom.
Okay. So Keita, for you, I know you said it was seemed like later when you got the entrepreneurial bug, when you guys got married, knowing that Domenick had this vision, that he had this way of seeing life and he was moving towards something, how did that impact you? What were some challenges that you guys, I guess, in the early days with him being so driven to want to be an entrepreneur, were there challenges? What were some things that were different for you?
It was difficult, one, accepting the vision, then supporting. So accepting and supporting are two different things, and I didn't do either. Wasn't intentional. I didn't know what that looked like. So for me, it wasn't even a couple, it was just my mom. So I didn't see what it looked like to have somebody to help, even if you disagree, even if you didn't support, it was one-sided. So it wasn't a merging of two people and we can do this together. And then I'm visual. So just because you say it and you give me, a sheet of paper and you spell it out, I need to see results. And that caused a lot of friction because it appeared as I didn't support or I wasn't on board when all along I was just like, I just need to know this is going to work.
That's good, Keita and Domenick. I want to kind of piggyback off of what Keita said because, fast forward when we meet you guys, y'all are going through it. I mean, going through it. You guys have been married for quite some time. You had children, beautiful baby girls, and y'all was trying to figure it out. Bro, when it comes to now bringing this family in tow, and you got a wife who doesn't get how you think, don't mean it. That's just not how she thinks. Can you talk a little bit about the stresses and then managing that to the point to where, you could begin to right that ship and get y'all on the same page?
I think a lot of it, to be honest, was really just my faith in God. God is the reason why the marriage was able to stay, right? And then as far as business wise, to paint the full picture, you know, it wasn't just, hey, I shared this on paper, like I was homeless, right? So I get it. It's kind of hard for somebody to believe in your vision and in your dreams if you sleeping in your car, right? If you don't have anything to kind of show for. But when you put faith in you, I knew my ability. Like I always say, I bet on me, right? If I don't bet on anything else, I bet on myself, right? So when the friction came or the lack of support, In my mind, it was just, all right, you'll see. It kind of gave me like extra motivation because, all growing up all my life, I never really had people. I had some people, but as far as family, there was nobody that was like, my cheer, right? My cheering squad. So I was just, built tough skin, man. Like, listen, get it out the mud. And eventually people would believe in you, but if they don't, go do what you gotta do. And so that was just my mindset was, all right. So yeah.
Yeah, no, kind of that whole "I'll show you, but I can tell you" kind of a thing. And I'm a firm believer that, and I know even in our case, Cherie, it wasn't until I produced something that you believed that it was really real. Because I was always good with my words, slick with my tongue, as my coach would say. Like I could have you thinking that this was gonna happen, but because in my mind's eye, it was real. And so I wasn't making that up. But oftentimes I think, and maybe you get a chance to speak to that in those entrepreneurs, Domenick, that are married and they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to get their significant others and all those around them they're trying to rally them in one sense. But in a lot of ways, it becomes I just need you to believe in me. And you mentioned that word faith. A lot of times, and I'd like to kind of switch gears a little bit. Once you started producing, what kind of results did you see? And then let's begin to switch gears a little bit, Cherie. And I want to kind of walk through sort of building that business. And so I do want you to kind of speak to a little bit about once that thing began shifting. But Dom, talk to us a little bit about kind of the whole emotional part of, man, she's starting to see it now. Let's start building this thing. Let's start ramping it up, because where you guys are today and where you were are two completely different places right now.
I'm not sure when it like changed when, she actually saw it, right? Um, I think it was more of me knowing that financial security was something that she was big on, that was a core value, right? So my main objective was, okay, let's secure some things financially, right? I knew I had different benchmarks. Like the first
Got it.
one was to pay off our student loans, right? It
Yep.
was like, okay, boom, let's take care of that. And then the next benchmark was, a vehicle. And then it was, like a
I
new
love it.
house, right? And
Yep.
so it was just different things that I was just striving for, hoping that, all right, well, she would see that this is actually working, right? But entrepreneurship is, you're not gonna, it doesn't go up like this, right? So you're gonna have valley and mountain moments. And it takes special people to understand that, as high as you can peak, you can also dip,
Yeah.
right? Are you willing to continue to stay, to cheer, affirm, and say, yo, I get it, right? I'm with you through those different seasons. So
No, I love it. And I want to go to Lakita on this because it kind of speaks to sort of how your temperament works. So for those of guys that don't know, as coaches, one of the things that we like to provide people is some insight as to how their personalities play into their relationships. Domenick, and we talked about this, I think, when our last episode, is definitely a D and an I. I'm not sure his percentages off the top of my head. I'm not looking at it. In terms of on the DISC assessment, the dominating person with the vision that goes in and doesn't ask a lot of questions. He's just a doer. He's also an I, which is a highly influential person and has a way with words. Those are the kind of people that become Pied Pipers. Often they don't know where they're going, but I promise you, you're going to have a good time when you get there, and you're going to have a good time along the way, and we're going to do the thing. And you believe them, right? You straight believe them. I can see that playing out with the kids and coaching and all that. But here's the difference between that and marriage. Now you know each other in a way that it's extremely intimate. And now you get a chance to see all the workings from behind the curtains perspective. And it causes introverts like your wife, who is an S and a C. We call that the chameleon and the turtle. That's the person who's stable. The S stands for stability. The C is cautious. She's not a person that is just going to jump right out at any risk. She's going to calculate that. She's going to ask 1,000 questions. Keita, when you started seeing him produce and you started seeing things happen, he said this would happen, and he pulled it off. How did that change sort of how you saw the need to affirm him more and to get in like, okay, let me get in this thing with him and really try and be that support system?
If I can be honest, just to say that the need and the affirmation came right away, it didn't. It's still a learning process at the moment. But I can say that's when the questions slacked off until the next venture or idea came. So it went from not as consistent to, okay, this is something new. So here come the questions and stuff again. That's an area that I can transparently say still needs work. It was better when I was constantly reading Power of a Praying Wife because it gives you the topics to pray for and things because when you don't see it and you don't know, and I learned, it mentioned something in the Bible about rather her raindrop than have a nagging wife. And so it was one of those accountability moments where it's like, well, I'm just not going to say anything at all because it comes off as unsupportive, whereas I just want to see where I'm going. And so that honestly is where I think now more work has to be done transparently.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that, Kid. So when it comes to communication, what are some things that you guys do now? You guys are how many years in now?
15. This year six, it'll be 16 this year.
16. You guys are 16 years in, many businesses, many children, and many changes. You guys recently relocated to another state. What are some tools, some things that you guys use now that you have learned over the years to help you guys better communicate when it comes to not just, things about the business, but just being able to balance between the business and your roles at home? Like Glenn said, your parents, you have 3 lovely girls and you have a new son. So there's a lot of communication. You guys have a lot of moving parts that are going on all the time. Just with your family. But then when you add the businesses, that adds a whole nother layer of issues, things that are going on. What are some tools you guys use to communicate now so to not repeat a lot of the same mistakes that you may have made earlier on in your relationship because of the lack of communication?
One thing he did start was a calendar that he gave me access to because if it's not on a calendar, 9 times out of 10, neither one of us going to remember. But I would say the calendar and giving me access. So even if he put something, I can go and put something. And then the reassuring text right behind it. Like, hey, I added this and holding each other accountable. That's one thing I can say. If I forget or he forget, we just be like, hey, did you remember? And then it's a quick yes or no. In the past, that would have been a big old thing. But learning now that the person is not doing it to, harm you or to belittle you, but it's literally because we have so many moving parts is a critical piece that can't be overlooked. In other areas, I can say, you know, big things we will have to work on communicating more and in depth. But it at least now I know. I can't say I don't know. I might not know all the details, but he does attempt to make it so that I at least know what's going on.
Yeah, Dom, if I could ask you that same question, bro, what are some things that you had to institute in order to be able to? And again, let me just stop and say, this is a work in progress. I don't want to give the impression that these people are perfect at this. That's the whole reason we bring y'all behind closed doors, because you're dealing with imperfect people with continuing changes, right? Stuff is always moving. The question is, what tools do you have? How do you use them? Do they work for you? What do you need to do? And so, Dom, if you could speak to that, tools that you've learned along the way, or things that's like, you know what, this is how I'm going to bridge this gap, and you find it working for you.
Well, first, let me just say transparently, my communication is not the greatest by far, right? And part of that is because I'm so used to doing things by myself, right? So, communication wise, when it comes to details, I'm not the guy. Y'all sign up for maps and let Coach Glenn help you with that. That's not my skill set. I haven't mastered that, right? Not saying it can't be, but it's just not something that I have been able to master, right? But there are just certain things that work with my personality, text, calendars, those are like the main thing. And then I may do like a vision board or type something up and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I see. This is what I would like to do. Or here's my goal, right? I want to, generate this amount of income, or, us have this amount of property. So, but I can put the whole thing out there, but may not go step by step on what I'm actually doing to make it happen. And then being that we're not, we're talking about entrepreneurship. Well, basically two entrepreneurs in different businesses. So we do have our Airbnb business that we probably communicate the most together, because it's that one business that we both interact on the schedules, or making sure that the properties have what they need, or just in a third. And then it's just, what the roles are, right? So when it comes to the properties that we have, I couldn't tell you anything about the utility bills, right? I don't know, like what's going on with the bills. I just know that I just go out and try to make sure we have the income to support the bills, right? So she handles all of the, paying all the different bills, and, trying to keep track of all of that. But I think now things are kind of getting a little better, being that we don't have we have sold both of the cafes. So it's kind of like, all right, now I'm strictly focused back on real estate. It's no longer trying to manage a cafe, which took a lot of my time having to be present inside the cafe. So now it's kind of like, all right, that's out the way. Let's just go back to focus on the bread and butter. And so that's been great.
Cherie, real quick, and I know you want to jump in. One thing that we teach people, particularly when we work with them on the consulting and the business end of what we do, it is asking what we call the focusing question. What is the one thing such by doing that it makes everything either easier or unnecessary? And Domenick, what you just got finished describing is this idea that sometimes less is more. In order to scale something, you have to be able to multiply it. The challenge with that is that as an individual, you can only do what you do. You can only do what you're capable of, what you have the ability to do, the resourcing and stuff like that. So I think that when you begin to identify those roles, like you just did, listen, this is her area. This is what she does better than me. And I think in marriage, a lot of times, Cherie, we don't apply that principle to a marriage or to a relationship. And I think that it makes things so much easier, because that can be crazy when you think about it. Come on.
Right. And I love how you guys described how you guys work together. Although, other than the Airbnb, there you both do have separate businesses, you have separate things in that. And I think a lot of times couples come together and one person may have a dream about doing a business, and their assumption is that the person is going to be a part of it. And for some couples, that may never happen because that other person just doesn't think that way. Now, Kita has grown into developing a more entrepreneurial mindset and is adopting that now. But I honestly, there are some couples that don't need to work together. It's key that you identify your roles. What is your role? What is your strength? What is your weakness? And you're able to bring those together, not only just for the business, but for the marriage. And to switch gears real quick, as far as the marriage, like I said, you have 4 kids. How do you do that? How do y'all manage that, running businesses, but how do you manage your household together as far as, roles? And before you answer that, and Dom, I'm going to give you your roses right now. You have improved in your communication tremendously in the time that we've known you. And so you're not as bad a communicator as you think you are. You do communicate, although it may not look like the traditional way of communicating. This is the thing, is people, you have to figure out, how do you communicate to your spouse? How do you communicate that information? You've learned, like with the calendars, implementing those, that is a way of communicating. And so I don't want you to minimize that. It's just not, you may not sit down and have a conversation all the time, but you're still communicating the information.
Absolutely.
And so that's still communication. But going back to, so the whole juggling act with the kids, how do you do it?
So I'll start. Kids, she holds down the house, right? Now I'm the clean freak. When it comes to like homework and things like that, their grades for them to be on honor roll, I have no part in that. Not now. Early on, I did because she had a job, and even it felt like when I first started my entrepreneurship journey, it was hard for her to respect me as an entrepreneur. So I was like the stay-at-home dad and had to take the girls with me on showings and closings, and I was pushing strollers
That
inside.
probably, that probably helped you close some deals. You do
Yeah,
your
you know what? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It did help some, right? So and I enjoyed it though, and they enjoyed it. So that was, our bond time as well as, me showing them what I do, and them being able to learn to respect and to understand that, yes, this is work. And so as time went on and she was able to leave the job, and then to be more like at home, it allowed me to kind of really thrust into the entrepreneurship journey, and not have to worry about some of the other things that was going on. But I do attend if it's games, if it's anything dealing with them as far as school, if it's
PTA.
assemblies, PTA. I'm Trust me, I'm there, right? So I make sure that I'm a part, but it's just certain things that I may not actually participate in, and homework is one of them.
I love that, Keita. I love that, Dom. Keita, what would you add to that in terms of how do you guys really make this work, all those moving parts?
He's absolutely right. And I think because he held it down in the beginning, I took it personal when I came home. And that I think that's another thing. When I actually saw the results that he was getting, it was no issue. It was like, okay, he held it down, like it's my turn. So it wasn't oh, you did it, now I have to do it, thrown in his face. No, I did it. And because I felt like, one, I missed so much as a parent. And then two, I saw when he was all in the results that it produced. And so that role, me taking on a home so that he can do that, that part I don't mind at all. But sometimes I feel like I've taken it on so much, it leaves him to do everything by himself. Where I know sometimes he's probably like, well, can she just come with me? Or can she just look at this with me? But I'm in mom mode. And, sometimes I think as the woman or the wife or even the spouse who is that nurturer, we attach to that so much. We do allow the entrepreneur to just go, 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 go without checking in and be like, hey, do you need anything from me? Even though I think everything I'm doing is freeing them to do that, I think I could do better with checking in and saying, hey, I got this, but is there something else that you need in addition to?
And actually, that's a perfect segue to my next question. So we talked about you guys as entrepreneurs, business owners. We talked about you as parents.
Mm-hmm.
So as a couple, how do you guys prioritize you? Or what are things you're doing to prioritize you? And we're gonna keep it 100 here. What are things you guys do to make sure that you're investing in you? And what are things you can do to improve in that area?
Well, I will say right now for me, because we're in a new location and don't know a lot of people, he's very spontaneous and he will say, hey, let's just go ride the cookout and get ice cream. Okay, but a full date night, I'm like, it got to be within like a 5 mile radius because we got to be able to make sure that they're okay. So, I need help in that area to fully let him lead when he tries because I'm a planner. He will shut up shop if he feels, the Lord saying, go be special. But I have to allow him to do that sometimes. He has tried, come a very long way with that. But I have to accept his way of spending time together may look different than my way as well. So watching shows together now, that is one. Riding out for ice cream is one. And I even had to put a note in my phone, to schedule 30 minutes of uninterrupted time with him a day. I mean, it's this far in the marriage, but that's me making a priority because I know me. So I would say being intentional about it, blocking off that time. It don't have to be the same time every day, but and allowing him to be spontaneous without me being so rigid on a date has to look this way or it has to be at this time of the day. But I can say he does try.
So I think that's super dope. Dom, what are some things that you're doing to prioritize you guys as a couple?
Going out to eat, not being on my phone.
Ooh, say that
Mhm.
again for the fellas in the room.
Yeah.
He's done great with that one, I must add.
But yeah, just like literally put my phone down. Because we do things, man, by nature. You don't even notice it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't notice how much I've, been on my phone. So that's one thing intentionally, deleting social media apps off my phone, and not even being active, only using it when I'm posting something business wise. Because there are certain things that take up your time that you don't even realize that you are consuming a lot of time and energy in it. Just kind of trying to, reset the tone to say, and if it's just, there's so much to do out here, right? So if it's, trying to find new restaurants, new places to go, new things to do.
I love it. No, I get that, Dom. And before we get out of here, one thing I want to say again, and I've said it and alluded to it throughout this conversation is that there is an evolution process from where you start to where you end up. And I've been hearing it a lot. Your boy Uncle Shay Shay say this quite a bit. Don't judge a man by where he starts. Judge a man by where he finishes or where he is now. And did it go up? Did it go down? What are the increments? And I just think that as you guys are continuing to, work on y'all, just be encouraged. And that's for anybody that's listening. None of us got this thing all worked out. None of us. Sri, you got something you want to add?
Yeah, I just think, to summarize, pretty much what I've heard you guys share, it takes intentionality. You have to be intentional, especially when you're business owners or entrepreneurs and managing a family. It has to be intentional. It's not going to happen by chance. You have to put things in place intentionally in order for your relationship and your business to be successful. And you guys are on your way. You've had many successes along the road, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys continue to be successful. So one last question. So what is your vision for your future? Let's say 5 years down the road. Where do you guys see you relationship wise?
I think, like he said, the move here has been a breath of fresh air. And, he did in a vulnerable moment say, I miss my friend. So the intentionality of growing as an individual and as a couple.
I think for me, there's a saying we used to say, you got to have thick skin, right? Um, I'm kind of changing that tone now. I think you got to have rubber skin. You know what I mean? Like, because with thick skin, you still feel it. So for me, I have to learn how to let certain things that she say and do just rub off, and I don't feel it, right? And I'm hoping to get to that place to where the communication is better 5 years from now, right? That it has proved a whole lot more, um, where I'm communicating in a way that she can receive it. So I can say, "Hey, I communicated," and to her, it's like, "Well, no, you didn't," right? I think the speaking the love language and making sure that that tank is full, relational, and I think that kind of overflow into business wise, because I didn't believe it that, but maybe it was one of the maps called that somebody mentioned. Relationally, if things are not going a certain way relationally, that it can actually impact your business. Uh, Me, I didn't think that was so. I was like, I thought that regardless, the business it's gonna flourish. But the reality is, stress. If things are not in harmony, things are not in sync, it does impact you, right? Your energy, your ability to focus the way you should focus, right? And so, just to any couple out there, just try to find a way to uplift and build each other up, right? Because when you tear each other down, you also turn down your business, you turn down you turn down everything besides just you two. So that's what I would
I love
add.
it. I love it. Cherie, before we go, I want to remind everybody that if you guys are looking for tools, if you guys are looking for strategies, Cherie and I have authored 9 books between us. Uh, this couple and a bunch of other couples are a part of our group coaching community. We have that. We can do some one-on-one stuff. Whatever it is that you need relationally, I want you to look at the descriptions below and check it out and see if there's something that we can help you with. Because, and I know you guys know that we don't believe that people can really do this by themselves. It takes community. It takes a different perspective. It takes seeing and hearing from behind closed doors what actually goes on and what could the alternatives be and would that work in our situation, and if not, what could. So we want to encourage you to take advantage of that. Sheree, you got anything you want to add?
Well, I wanted to kind of, Domenick, you said something, and I'm going to kind of have you guys actually do this now. You were talking about being able to say affirming things to each other. And so if there was something you each could say to each other right now to affirm one another, as far as your growth and where you guys are today compared to, you know, some of the things that you guys have gone through, managing this whole business and marriage thing. What is, it can be one word, whatever. I'd like you guys to affirm each other right now. Yes, I'm putting you on the spot. Yes, I'm putting you on the spot.
I see. So I would say thank you. Thank you for being patient. Jesus. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for, you know what, you're right, you said affirm. So let me speak life in that. Thank you for being an amazing, supportive wife, speaking life at every season, at every step, every high season, every low season, being the greatest cheerleader I could ever ask for. Thank you so much for that.
Well, I would like to say thank you for bringing me along this journey of life. I don't think I would have, you know, chosen this path on my own or been able to or to experience it. So I can say you have given me a life that I didn't know existed. So thank you.
I love it. With that being said, guys, let me say this. I hope you guys have gotten a ton out of this. Please do me a favor and chime in on the chat below, even if you see this by way of replay, and let us know, how can we help? What are some things that you guys are doing that is changing the game on how you show up in your relationships, whether you're in business together, you just grow, maybe you guys got 9 to 5s that are really demanding, but you are purposely taking time out for you. We want to know, we want to be interactive. At the end of the day, here's what we know to be true. You cannot get to any place of significance by yourself. And the reason why, Cherie, is
because we all need some help.
Y'all be good, and we'll see you on the next edition of Behind Closed Doors.